Okay, so I had titled the event How to Build a Profitable Freelancing Business. And this is something that is really awesome to do when you are homeschooling because it allows so much flexibility. I have been freelancing for 23 years now while raising 8 of my kids and homeschooling. Only for part of that, but still. And it has been, and I have done other businesses before. Like I have done e-commerce with products. I do coaching, I do courses, and I'm still freelancing. It is definitely one of the easier ways, fastest ways to have a profitable, lucrative business that is something that doesn't take as much work as the other types of businesses, regardless of what people tell you. So really what it entails is just to reiterate that freelancing is something that can be done in any industry. So it is something, writing is one of those things that people have associated with freelancing. And so that always comes up when I'm talking to people as well. I thought freelancing was just for writing, and that is what a lot of people associate it with because that is what we have known. However, it can be web design, it can be graphic design, it can be writing, and even writing, different kinds of writing falls into this. So there is blog writing or content writing, which is like blogging, social posts, things like that, that are just to create content. And then there is copywriting, which has the purpose of selling. So this would be email marketing, Facebook ad copy, things like that, sales pages, websites, all of that. So there's even different types of writing that fall into that category. There are podcast managers, Pinterest managers, project managers. I mean, literally the list is endless. And in fact, if I remember, I will try to attach one of the downloads that I have that goes through quite an extensive list of some of the things that people can do as freelancers. And so what it really amounts to is that you need to choose a skill to monetize, obviously, in order to become a freelancer. And for whatever reason, we somehow think that our skills aren't valuable, like the things that we already have. And so people often will want to go and learn new things. So we see all of these different types of things showing up in our news feed. We'll see, hey, be a bookkeeper, and that's the best thing. And hey, be a writer, that's the best thing. And they all sound amazing. But the fact of the matter is, if it is not something that we are naturally skilled at, it doesn't matter how good it sounds. It doesn't matter how much money you can make with it. If it does not align with your personality and your abilities, you're not going to be able to do it. And this is what ends up happening, where a lot of people go and stack up all of these courses and make all of these investments, and they don't work. Instead of looking inward and seeing what they already have inside of them that they can do. So just as an example, we have a lady who came into my program, and we like went through all of her different skills, and she had settled on a business that she was going to do, and it just didn't feel aligned after a period of time. Well, here we realized that she had an actual degree in communication and used to work in radio. And we're like, the perfect fit was podcast management for her. And as soon as she realized that and dove into it, she immediately became profitable. And so what happens is that we're so close to the skills that we have and it's so easy for us to do these things that we don't even think about getting paid for them, or we don't think that anybody would pay for it because we would never pay for it because it's our skill. We would never go pay somebody to do the thing that we can do because we know how to do it. But other people
Right.
will pay you for the thing that you know how to do because they don't know how to do it. And that is something that a lot of people don't realize and forget. And so that's why they think they have to go learn something new when really they probably already have everything that they need. Just as an example, I met with one of our students a couple weeks ago. She was getting ready to start with her business, and like we had a phone call, and she was listing off all these things. She's like, I love to research. I love to problem solve. I love doing technical stuff. Like she just started going through this whole list, and I'm like, well, have you ever thought about being like somebody that hooks up tech for people, for entrepreneurs? And she's like, that's a thing. And I'm like, yes, it's a thing. Like, like tons of people need this. And she was just so excited having this revelation. And she was like, I am going to go all in. we had another one that was similar, and she's like, I love data, I love spreadsheets, like I love telling stories that make the data make sense. And I'm like, okay, well, what about being a Facebook ads manager? I said, you get to do all of those things. And she was just like, her mind was just blown, like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to check into that. And that's what she's pursuing. So I highly recommend that anybody that is deciding that maybe they want to have a freelancing business, they want to do a service-based business, that they ask around to people like, what do you know me for? What am I good at? And really start to assess your skills. And when I talk to people about assessing their skills, I'm talking about like digging deep. What have you done at your previous jobs? And I don't just mean, well, I was a teacher. No, no, no. You weren't just a teacher. What did you do in that job? You created lesson plans. You organized kids. You organized activities. Like there's all of these things, and people don't realize that. Well, I'm a nurse. Okay, well, you're not just a nurse. That involves a lot of customer service, so to speak. That includes paperwork, being organized, things like that. So really dig deep and start to look at what are some of the things that you're really good at, even some of your hobbies. Like, are you good at research? Are you good at organization? A lot of people don't even think about that. Like, organization is a skill. There are so many people out there that cannot stay organized. And so organization is a skill. Being able to research is a skill. And so anything that you can do is something that somebody else can't. And so to just remember that when you are entertaining this idea, it is going to be a huge benefit to you. The other thing that we see a lot online, I'm sure many of you have seen it, is we see a lot of people talking about like, come and be a virtual assistant. Basically, assisting somebody virtually is a virtual assistant, right? Like anybody can do it. But the problem is that when people focus solely on using that as a title, it is looked at as cheap labor. And so we see this all the time where people are like, oh, go get a virtual assistant. You can get help with it for cheap. And we don't want to do that. If we want to build a profitable business, you want to be in demand. You want to have a specialty that people are going to pay premium dollars for. So, I mean, if you were to, if you were to see posts like, oh, I'm a VA and I do social media. Well, it's people look at the VA part as cheap labor. So I always just recommend, I'd like to just tell people that, because people think that that's the easiest barrier to entry because it sounds easy, but they're not tapping into what their actual skills are that they can actually get paid for. I personally, many of my friends and some of our students have hit 5 figures a month with service-based freelancing as a specialty. And so it's possible for anybody to do that. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that is as we keep going. But so the other thing is, once you've figured out then what skills you're going to monetize, obviously that also plays into what problem are you going to solve for people. That's really the biggest thing, because a lot of times people will be like, well, I don't have any skills. But okay, fine. If you don't want to look at your skills being valuable, what problem do you know you could solve for another small business owner? The thing is a lot of times we always want to associate with like, well, why would a big business hire me to come and do this? They have employees, whatever. We don't want to focus on corporations. We don't want to focus on anybody that has 10 or more employees, or probably any employees really at all, unless it maybe was a former employer of yours. But we want to focus on helping like solo entrepreneurs or very small businesses, because those are going to be the people who need what you have, but don't have enough work to guarantee somebody a full-time job. Like they might have enough to pay you a $5,000 a month retainer, but they don't want to pay somebody. They might not have and I'm going to explain the difference between hourly and like value and packages. Like it's a different story, but like they know that they don't have to have somebody in an office, that they're not paying for office space. They might not know exactly what time frames certain projects are going to take. Sometimes it's beneficial for them if they are not going to hire you month after month. There's going to be some specialties that are just one-off projects, like for instance, editing. Like if you were to be an editor, obviously if somebody writes a book, they're probably only going to write one book at a time. That's going to be a one-time project where they would rather pay somebody, $5,000 to edit their book versus hire somebody that they can't guarantee hours for. Bookkeeping would be different. Bookkeeping would be month after month. So that's also something to keep in mind if you decide a service-based business is which ones are going to allow me to work month after month after month, or which ones are going to keep me in a client acquisition phase. Some people like the client acquisition phase because they get to work with different people all the time. And sometimes when people write a book, they do come back a year later with another book. And if they're happy with your work, they're going to come back and you'll eventually build your clientele. Web design is something where you're only going to build the website once, but you would be able to charge like a maintenance package type of thing. And so again, it wouldn't benefit somebody, especially a solopreneur, to hire an employee to do their web design. So it would make sense for them to hire a, one-time freelancer, maybe pay for maintenance. So you want to think of those people who would need your service because they can't do it all by themselves, but that aren't going to require you to be in an office. They're not going to require you to, be an employee. Like it's just a whole different world when you start thinking about it. Because there's a lot of like business owners online who, especially coaches, they need graphics, they need copywriting, they need blogging, they need a website, they need all of these things, and they can't do it all themselves. And if they try to do it all of themselves, it's going to be a really long time before they get their business launched. And so it's those types of people that are going to be looking for you to help them solve a problem. So how do you get in front of these people? So one of the things that I like to recommend for people is to start building relationships with them. You can do that in groups like this one. You can join other entrepreneur groups. You can connect with people on LinkedIn. You can connect with people in your local community. One of the things that I see people like worry about is using their own personal social media to use it for like anything for business. But you can have your social media like private, but there are parts of your social media that are public that you can utilize to show people what you do. Similar to, this is something that gets me all the time. I see people all the time, they will tag their employer in their, like on the side where it says like they're employed at or they work at, whatever. They will put their employer there, but they have a hesitation about putting their own business there. And it's like you can advertise your business very subtly by just using your profiles. And so what happens is if you start building relationships with potential business owners, they're going to when you comment on their stuff, or if somebody refers you, they're going to come and they're going to look at your socials and they're going to see exactly what it is that you do right there on your social profile. And oftentimes it is, people think that they have to go and sell themselves in order to have a business. But the way that I like to look at it is that you have to sell yourself more in a job interview when they're asking you all of these different questions about whether or not you're the right candidate for the job. You have to sell yourself to be the best candidate for the job. You don't have to be convincing and selling yourself if you offer a service that people need. And I'm just going to use this story. So, because I use plumbers a lot in my analogies when I'm telling stories, because everybody needs a plumber and everybody can understand this. But like, if you have a toilet that's clogged or you have a shower that's not working, you know that you need that shower fixed or you need that toilet fixed. You know that you need a plumber. And so the plumber doesn't have to convince you to come over to your house and do the work. You already know that you need them. So you're going to call them, you're going to make the appointment, you're going to get them over to your house to fix whatever needs fixing. And if you are the only person that an entrepreneur knows that can create their website, that can do their bookkeeping, that can do their copywriting, they're going to come to you and they're basically going to be asking to throw money at you for you to come and solve their problem. And so this is why it is key to make sure that you let people know what you do, even just by having, those little things on your socials optimized to show that you have a business, but then also to be building those relationships and creating those referrals. Because here's an example. A lot of people one of the reasons why people aren't able to be successful with like MLM type of businesses is because all they're doing is just posting to their network. And a lot of times they only have a few hundred people on their network. And so the statistic for products is like for every 100 people that see your product, only one or two are maybe going to purchase. And so if you only have 400 people on your friends list, you're probably only going to get 8 people to buy. And then you just keep posting and keep posting and keep posting. And so long as you're never growing your network, you're not going to have new customers. And for freelancers, if the only people that you're friends with are people that have 9 to 5s, they have no reason to need a service unless, you offer lawn mowing or something like that that a homeowner might use. So just keep that in mind if you're doing this, that it really just it requires you to let people know what you do, build relationships with people and grow your network, and then let people, the perfect clients will be attracted to you so long as you're out there in this space. So like in this group, it's, ADHD, homeschooling, entrepreneurs or whatever. A lot of us already have businesses. And so we're already in this group alone, we're connecting with people that are entrepreneurs and probably need what we have. And so you can be commenting on a homeschool question, and if you are commenting things that people are really resonating with, they're going to automatically navigate over to your profile and see who you are and what you do. And then right there, it's going to be glaring at them, what your business is. So just keep that in mind. So once you've spoken with some potential prospects, let's say your potential client has now figured out what it is that you are able to do for them. They contact you, you either have a Zoom call, or I always recommend a Zoom call because so much can be lost in context over texting or email. So I always recommend having a call, but it's where you're going to interview them about their business. Tell me about your business. Tell me what your goals are, like where do you want your business to be, how, what are you struggling with and how can I help? And then they're going to tell you, and then you're going to be able to create a proposal for them. I always recommend doing packages of some sort or project-based pricing versus by the hour. If you work by the hour, you will always screw yourself out of money. And the reason why I say that is because if you become efficient at what you do, like let's just use this as an example. I know some people, they'll be like, oh, my client purchased 10 hours for the month and I do XYZ. And let's say for the first month, it takes you 10 hours to get accustomed to what you're doing for them. And then the next month, it only takes you 8 hours. And then the next month, it only takes 6 hours. The more efficient that you get, the more money you end up losing. And you're going to have to continue to get more and more clients to fill those hours. And you almost can never get ahead because you only have so many hours in a day to sell. So if you can sell based on based on a package, like I'm going to do this for you, this is what the package includes, it's this price, that is much more beneficial for you and for them versus trying to log hours. And for those of us that have ADHD, I can't even tell you how many times, like I don't keep track of hours, but like I would try to keep track of it just to see how long it would take me to do certain things. And anytime my kids would interrupt me, I would stop and I would mark the time down, or I would press pause on the app that I was using or whatever. And then I would forget. And then dang it anyway. And so I was always losing track. And I didn't want to ever do that with a client that I was working with. And so I was just like, nope, I'm done with the whole hourly thing. And it just made a huge difference in my ability to make a lot of money. And this is how people can get to 5 figures a month fairly quickly and easily with freelancing, because they charge by the package or by the project. Just to give you a little bit of context, when I first started 23 years ago, I was a medical transcriptionist and I worked in my 9 to 5 and I made $11 an hour. And I was there for 8 hours a day. And so whatever I did in my 8 hours, that's what I got paid for. And a lot of times I would obviously get all my work done and I would think of reasons why I could leave early. But if I left early, then I didn't get paid and I didn't get money. So I had to stay there and figure out things to do and twiddle my thumbs, right? Just so that I could make my $88 gross a day. And so when I started freelancing for a client on the side, he was paying me per project. So every project that I got, he was paying me $15. Regardless of how long it took me, I got $15 for that project. Well, as I got more efficient, I was able to do 4 in an hour. So I immediately went up to basically $60 an hour. And then I usually got about six projects a day. So it ended up being $90 a day. And it took me about an hour and a half. So working 6 hours less, I was able to make $2 more. And then that left me 6 hours to go make more money or to have more time with my family. And that was just as a medical transcriptionist. When I started doing ghostwriting for clients, I was able, I think the last client that I worked with, because I don't like ghostwriting. And that's why I can say if you choose something that you don't like, regardless of how much money it is, you're not going to stick with it. I think the last client I think I had, it was for $12,000. It was a project for 12 grand. And that I was able to, like, I told them, like, all right, well, this project is going to take me about 3 months. So for me, that was, it was 4 grand a month for that client, then for that project. And I got paid ahead of time, which I know for some is like hard to wrap their mind around, but like I got paid before I did the work. So the money was already in the bank and I was able to just solely concentrate on their work. So it is much more beneficial to get out of hourly pay. Also, I'm going to use another example for you so that you can fully understand the scope of why charging per package or a project is much better than charging by the hour. So for whatever reason, people are like have in their head this preconceived idea of what somebody's time is worth. And the more expensive it is per hour, the more hesitation people have. It's the craziest thing. So here's another plumber analogy for you. If you were to call the plumber and you were to ask them, like, hey, I need my toilet installed, how much do you charge to install a toilet? And if they were to tell you, we charge $100 an hour, but it only takes us about 30 minutes to install the toilet, but we charge a minimum of an hour. And in your mind, you're thinking $100 for 30 minutes, that is a ripoff. Like immediately it associates with the time. But if you were to call them and you were to say, hey, I need a toilet installed, how much does it cost? And if they were to say it's $100 to get your toilet installed, you wouldn't even think twice. You'd be like, all right, that's a pretty good deal. I get somebody to come in, do my toilet, it's installed the right way. Perfect, $100. It almost sounds cheap. But as soon as it's tied to the time, it immediately is expensive for people because people generally pay for things with their time because they're getting paid by the hour. So if they're getting paid by the hour, it sounds very expensive then if you're paying somebody else hourly that's like 2, 3, 4 times more than you. And so that's where a lot of hesitation comes in. So if you get paid by the project or by a package, you're being paid for the value that you're providing and the value that they're getting out of it versus your time. And it is a much easier yes than for anybody to agree to a $50 or $100 an hour rate. It's kind of crazy. So once your potential client has accepted the proposal, you will send an invoice. And again, like I said, you get payment before you ever start the work. Now, there's going to be some hesitation from some people because there are service-based providers who have gotten paid and then they disappear. So some are going to have that hesitation, some aren't. Some are going to understand why you're charging ahead of time. And in that case, you can always come up with some sort of, well, hey, okay, 50%, deposit and then 50% upon delivery or whatever. That's always something good too. But generally, when you create a relationship with people, as I had mentioned before, you don't have as many hesitations when people feel like they know you. And so then that makes the process, that much easier as well. But just keep in mind that, there's a lot of people out there. Like if you were to try to go and work with a brick and mortar business, for instance, because I worked with a lot of, when I was doing medical transcription, I worked with a lot of obviously doctors' offices and things like that. The people that work in brick and mortars or that have the brick and mortar mindset, the hourly pay, all of this, they're going to think completely different about things and pricing and all of that than the people that are online. Because people that are online, like coaches and stuff like that, they understand that that there is money to be made. So the hesitation to pay, $10,000, $12,000, whatever, for a ghostwritten book, like to them, it's peanuts almost, because they know the value that they're going to get from that versus somebody that is only doing business in your local community. So just keep that in mind, that there is a difference between freelancing offline and freelancing online. And I know this because I've done them both. And I still do. Like, I still work with doctors in brick and mortar, but then I'm also online. And so I know the significant difference and hesitations between mindset just from the two. So keep that in mind as, you start exploring like who you could help, things like that. Now, just really quickly, so that's how you build a profitable business. Like I said, you choose skills that you already have and that you're not going to feel like you're ever working. That's key. You want to make sure that you are working with clients that have a small business as well, not trying to go to a corporation or to a company that has employees, because they're going to have that 9 to 5 mindset. And if you want to make more money than you've ever made, you want to be working with people that have more of an open mind. And then obviously you want to make sure that you get paid money before you ever do the work so that you're not chasing clients for that invoice later. But so that's basically how you do it. But then there's going to be, I want you to like understand like the advantages of freelancing with ADHD. One is it gives quick results. So a lot of us, if we work on something that does not give us results, like if we're not actually getting feedback from it, we get discouraged. Some of you that struggle like with the RSD, it can feel like a rejection or like it's not working, something's wrong with me. Like you can deal with that. Where freelancing, because you're providing a service for people and there's all these people that need this service, it's easier to get a quick result versus trying to build an e-commerce store versus trying to build a coaching business, because the coaching business obviously requires you to build an audience. It requires you to build products, digital products, courses, all of these things. And freelancing is literally you posting somewhere saying like, hey, I'm offering this as a service. Does anybody need help with this? Or raising your hand in a group like this when somebody's like, hey, I need someone to do XYZ, and you raise your hand and you say, hey, I can help you, and you start that conversation. So it can give you quick results with quick momentum. I always recommend that if people are looking into business, that they do this business model first, because one, it is going to, if anybody's in their 9 to 5, it is going to help them get out of their 9 to 5 quicker, which in turn allows you to make more money, which in turn allows you to have more freedom, which in turn allows you to then fund and have time for all of your other ideas. And I know all of us that have ADHD, we struggle with having all of these ideas and like we can't figure out what we want to do. And if you are that person that's struggling with all of the ideas and you're struggling with, well, what business do I implement first? I actually have a video pinned on my profile that talks about building a business on your terms, but I talk about why I talk about how all businesses work, but not for everybody and not for every circumstance. And so if you go watch that video, I break down why certain businesses work and why they don't, and why, maybe you did a business that didn't seem to work, but it might work later if you put something else into effect first, like the service-based business. The other thing with ADHD in freelancing is that because we're able to choose what we're good at and interested in, it is easier to keep us focused, because again, like I said, no amount of money is going to keep you in momentum and keep you focused if you can't stand doing it. It will also then in turn make you feel like, well, I don't want to do the work. So then you don't look for clients, and then, or you don't connect with clients. It's kind of a form of self-sabotage if we are trying to go against our natural grain. And this is one of the reasons why so many people have businesses that they've tried and failed. One, because they didn't get the quick results, but also because it was not something that they were especially skilled at. Even though it sounded like something they could do, If it was not part of their personality, not part of what is their natural skills, it's not going to work. The other thing about freelancing is that we only have to do the skills that we want to do. I know that one of the things with me when I had a 9-to-5 job was that I had a lot of difficulty having to do things that I dreaded doing. It made me lose momentum for anything else. I did not want to go to work. I would think of reasons why I could call in or why I could leave early. If you create your business in the way that you want it to be, you can build it in such a way that you're only doing the tasks that you want to do and dropping everything else. And then it makes it feel like it's a business built for you. So here's an example. So I have a couple bookkeepers in my program, and one of them is like, I don't want to do taxes. And she's like been holding herself back from advertising. I don't do taxes. I don't want to do taxes. I'm like, so don't do taxes. Be the bookkeeper that does just strictly like keeping track of the transactions. Like if that's all you want to do, just be the bookkeeper that keeps track of the transactions and gives them a profit loss statement. If you like taxes, then just do taxes. I think those are CPAs that do them, but like if you want to do that, then just focus on that. If you want to do accounts receivable, great, then do that as well. And payable, like do that as well. But if you don't, just do the transactions. So you get to choose what you want to do. Graphic designers are like, well, I don't want to have to do everything. Okay, so or content creators, that's one, content creators. Well, we'll use both. Graphic designers, some people like to just do PDFs and graphics, and other people like to just do t-shirt designs. That's okay. You're still a graphic designer, but just choose the things that you want to do. If you're a content creator, I hear this from people all the time. Well, I like to create content. Like I like to create social posts. I like to create ebooks and PDFs and stuff like that, but I don't want to create video. Okay, great. Don't. You get to choose what you want to do, and you get to choose what you don't want to do. And that is the beauty of having your own service-based business. The other thing is you don't have to abide by any type of schedule. If you are, I mean, you can implement your own schedule, of course, but you don't have to have a schedule. If you are somebody that likes to work late at night when the kids are in bed or early in the morning, you get to choose whatever works best for you. If you don't want to work on Mondays and Tuesdays, you don't. You just have to make sure that you build your business around deadlines, and you get to set what those are. You get to tell your client when those are going to be due. So we go back to the ghostwriting that I was talking about. I told my client that in order for me to produce an efficient book or a sufficient book, I needed 3 months. Well, they're at the mercy of me because I'm the one that's writing the book. And sure, they might want it in a month, but if I can't produce it in a month, they don't get it in a month. So you don't have to abide by a schedule. You get to work on your own, and you get to work on deadlines. Now, this is if you're anything like me, and I'm sure you are because you have ADHD, I thrive on deadlines. This is what, like, the busier that I am, the more motivated I am. So the more work that I have sitting on my list, I'm better able to sit there and stay focused. And the same is true if I have a deadline to reach. So if I know that my deadline is coming up, then I can sit down and I can hyper focus and I can get it done because I have this external deadline looming. I know a lot of us that with ADHD, we can't we are missing the internal regulator that allows us to run on typical people schedules. And we have like external factors. This is why we're often late. This is why we often, pass deadlines. But if you give yourself a deadline and maybe it's a little bit sooner than the client deadline, like there's a way for you to work around that. We don't have to keep track of our time. Again, that goes back to not having the schedule. I can't keep track of for the life of me because I'm always distracted. I miss something. So having project-based or packaging pricing allows for you to no longer have to keep track of the time because you are now being paid for your skills and your value versus your time. And again, that allows you to make the most amount of money in the least amount of time. And like, I highly recommend that to everybody. And then again, the more efficient that you get, that allows you to make more money, allows you to give yourself raises on demand, because the faster you get, obviously, the more work you can take on. As a transcriptionist, I was able to, obviously, the more I typed, the faster I got. So because I was being paid, on production or for the project, the faster I got, it was a raise on demand. I also started implementing the software where like you can put in like 2 or 3 keystrokes and it'll type out the whole word, text expander, I think it's called, or macros. I would do a lot of that, and that allowed me to get done with reports way, way faster, and allowed me again to continuously give myself raises. And then again, finally, the last one, it allows you time and funds for your other ideas and interests because you're getting a result from your service-based business. You're getting a result, you're getting payment, you're getting feedback from your clients, especially if you're getting praise from those clients. Like if they're like, oh my gosh, I love you. Not only does that just, it booms your momentum because now you've gotten external feedback, but it also just helps you feel more confident and more secure in what you're doing. And so then your ability to raise your prices goes up because now you're feeling more confident in your ability to get the work done and to provide a quality product or result or whatever you are doing. And so it allows you to move up the ladder in your pricing. One thing that I will see clients do, like when they first get started, they're kind of, like, I don't know if I'm any good. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm good, but we have these doubts. Again, we go back to the skills that we already have because it's so natural to us. It feels awkward charging for it. And so we're kind of meek when we start, well, I don't know, like I'm just going to charge this because inherently we don't value what we do because we would never pay somebody for it. Again, I go back to that. But then as soon as somebody's like, yes, without a hesitation, you know that you're charging too little. And in fact, you may even have clients that will tell you that you're charging too little. I had that happen with me. I started out when I was doing ghostwriting, and just crazy to me, I charged like $2,500. And now I can see like where that was so wrong, but my coach advised me to do 2,500. And the very first client that I got was like, yep, I'll do it. He said, but if I'm ever going to work with you again, you need to double your prices. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you need to double your prices. So the next person I met with, then I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to boldly ask for $5,000. And he was like, yep, I'll do it. He's like, but if I'm ever going to work with you again, he said, you need to double or triple your prices. This is way too low. And I'm like, my mind is just blown at this point in time because I'm like, my clients are telling me to raise my prices. Well, here's why. Because they were telling me basically that if they were to walk into a car dealership and there was a Ferrari with 500 miles on it, and the car dealership was going to sell it to them for $5,000, their first thought was not, what a great deal. Their first thought was, what's wrong with it? And so they were telling me, they said, we know who you are. We know what kind of value you provide. And you're going to come to us and tell us that you're going to charge $2,500 or $5,000 to ghostwrite a whole book. Like our first thought is that it's not going to be a quality book because you're not charging accordingly. So keep that in mind. If for any type of business that you all are doing, if you are finding like you're hesitating on prices, but keep in mind that even though you're price projecting because you would never pay for that service, you have to think of it from their perspective on pricing. Like, is it too cheap? Are they going to wonder, are you any good? Are they going to hesitate? So a lot of times I see people in groups, they'll be like, oh, my client, like I can't get clients. Like they're telling me that like my pricing is too high or whatever. But most of the time it's you're not connecting with the right clients, but also it is because they don't want to tell you that you're too cheap. Um, and sometimes that's what they'll just say, oh, your prices are too, but they're really not. And not everybody's comfortable with telling you that. So just keep that in mind, moving forward, like whether you're coaching, whether you're freelancing, whatever, that people do look at it as you're not charging enough. So that's what I have for you. If you all want to like dive deep into more about how this works, I have my Launch into Freedom workshop coming up next week. Well, I try to do one every month. So if anybody's watching this on the replay later in the future, you can go to launchintofreedom.com, and for 5 days, we dive into each of these topics a little bit more, show screenshots. I bring receipts, got testimonials and things like that. If you want to see, kind of more how you can envision this for yourself, you can go and check that out. Thank you so much for hanging out. Bye.